Okay, today I'd like to take a little bit closer look at my new chord symbol. I showed you this in a previous video. You have your root tone, type indicator, size indicator, and modifier. So let's look at the type indicators. Let's look at that today. The type indicators are these, and there are only 5. The augmented, major, minor, and I put the line across the lowercase m so you don't confuse it with the uppercase m. The D for dominant, and the circle for diminished. So you have your augmented, major, minor, dominant, diminished. I'm trying to speak correctly because I generally don't speak well. So those are your 5 type indicators. There's only 5. Then you have your size indicators. It tells you the size of the chord, the bass chord. We have 7, 9, 11, 13. And I showed you a whole bunch of pictures of those in previous videos. So this is the size of your bass chord. There's only four numbers used. All right. Now for the modifiers are used on the chord symbol to show that we added or omitted notes. All right. And the modifiers can be numbers or symbols. And the numbers, of course, are very simple. 2, like for your second, 3 for your third, 4, 6, etc. Now I have the 3 in parentheses because in my system, my chord notation system, we do not modify the third, but we can omit the third. All right, we can omit it, and I'll show you in a minute. And then down here for symbols, we have the doubly augmented, perfect, major, minor, diminished, doubly diminished, and N, which stands for no. If there's an N in front of a number, that means that note is not there. All right, that note at that interval is not there. So these are your modifiers. There aren't too many. And they show whether we have added or omitted something from our bass chord. Now, regarding the omission, let's say you had the chord traditionally called a C7 with a suspended 4. That's the traditional way of writing it. In my system, we don't write it like that. Mine would be C, dominant 7, that's the bass chord. There'd be no third, but there'd be an added 4th. Now if we wrote this in my linear alphanumeric way, it would be C, dominant 7 with no third, but the added 4th. And then when you see the 4, that's a 4th that would be at an unaltered interval. In this case, it would be a perfect 4th. There'd be no change because you see there's no symbol in front of the 4. And the reason why I don't care for the old system is because, first of all, my whole point was to simplify and standardize and create a system that could be used for a long, long time that is very, very clear. So I call mine the what you see is what you get system. What you see here is plain and clear. C, root, dominant chord type. The bass chord size is a 7th. Then you have your modifiers. So it's not really based on any harmonic or melodic theory so much as the old system. It's basically, well, the way you see it, that's what you get. Very plain and simple. Now getting back to a little reminder, I talked about how I included the augmented type of chord in my system. This is an augmented type, and I showed you the C augmented 7, C augmented 9, C augmented 11, and C augmented 13. Only because with my augmented type of chord, the 7th, 9th, 11th, etc., respectively, is not augmented. It's the 5th that's augmented, because the 5th is the most commonly augmented tone in a chord or scale. So I kept that in the system. Now, you've already heard me say that, but I want to show you something. You see, if you've been paying attention, you would say, well, Joey, look, I've been paying attention, and I noticed something. Here you could have a C. This is in the G clef, by the way. I don't have space to put it. So you would have a C major 7 here, and then we could have an augmented 5th here instead of a perfect 5th. And you would say, according to my system, you say, oh, that's a C root major 7 type and size with an added or an augmented 5th, a modified 5th. You could say that. And you say, so you already showed me this, the C augmented 7, which looks identical. You can say, okay, that's a flaw in the system. I say no. You can do it both ways. Many chords in my system can be notated in different ways, but the different ways can be correct. They can both be correct. These are both correct, but watch this. The thing here is, to make this chord, to create this chord, right, we started with a bass chord, and we had to modify the 5th. We had to take out the perfect 5th and stick in the G sharp. So that was 2 steps involved. Here, only 1 step is involved. You have chosen the C augmented 7, and the 5th is already augmented. Boom, 1 step, and as opposed to 2 steps. We'll talk about that later. But I wanted to show that to those people who are paying attention and saying it could be a flaw in the system. Well, actually, it's not. And I wanted to clarify something. I really spoke poorly in my previous videos. I said wrong words. When I went to say diminished, I said dominant or this and that, and I speak poorly. I wanted to show you this here. I explained why I kept the C diminished 9th chord. I explained that, talked about it, and I said basically that your D double flat's the same as a C, and harmonically, and then your B double flat would be the same as an A. And so in essence I told you that this C diminished 9 is basically the same, technically, as a C diminished chord with an added major 6th. And I didn't speak correctly and clearly, so I wanted to clarify that. And not only that, but while we're at it, I wanted to also show you that the C, choosing the C diminished 9 is almost the same as choosing the C diminished 7, because here all you have is, you technically have a C here, and harmonically you have a C here, and over here you have the same notes or tones, you just don't have that extra C up top, but it's basically the same chord. So you're going to find in music, if you're writing music or analyzing music, you're likely going to use and find this. The eye or the mind will find this more quickly than this. I know this is redundant, but we kept it because it looks pretty, and that's it. Okay, so I wanted to clear that up. Moving right along, let's look at 2 example chords in my system. Say, well, does it really work? Is anybody ever going to really use it? Here, for example, if you look at these notes, and this would be a G clef. I just didn't have space to put it in. But if you had a G clef here, this would be C4, all right? And you have E, G flat, B, D flat, F, okay? So I hope I'm speaking correctly. Here you would have then, with my chord symbol, you would have a C, your root. It's a major type of chord. And its size is 11 because the highest note in the bass chord is an 11th. See, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. Then you have some modifiers. Well, oh, and here's the linear alphanumeric way of writing it. Now here's the deal. You look at this chord, you say, well, I don't know what that is. Well, you see, that when you take away the flat symbols, I call them specifiers, but people call them accidentals, you have a C major 11. That's a bass chord that I showed. That's one of the bass chords. So you see that's a C major 11. And it can't be anything else, because you see here that the diminished 5, the diminished 5th is diminished, but the 3rd is not diminished. And that tells you that it's not a diminished bass chord. You see that? You see that the 7th is not a minor, so you know it's not a dominant bass chord. And then you go through the process in your mind and you roll out everything, and you see clearly that's a C major 11 chord. And then you notate, you make it clear to the person who's going to read this that you have a diminished 5th here. All right, and then up here, all right, this D is a D flat, and so that would be indicated with a minor 9. That's the little M with the line across it, minor 9, and those are your two modified notes. Right? Now, if that's not clear, let's take a look at an easier one. Here you have a bunch of notes. Of course, this would be a G clef or my C5 clef, same thing. And you see that's the root is a C4. So here's your root indicated. Now you look up here and you see again, well, that's a diminished 5, but there's no flat sign with the E, the 3rd. There's no minor 3rd here, so you know it's not a diminished chord. And automatically, you see that this 7th is a minor 7th, as a flat sign. So you know that's not a major bass chord. And we know then from study and from learning that is a C dominant 9 bass chord. And the only alteration in this chord, this bass chord, is the 5th has been taken out, the G was taken out, and a G flat was stuck in. So you have a diminished 5th. You have a C dominant 9 with a diminished 5th. And here's the linear alphanumeric way to indicate it. C, it's a D9, point, circle, and the 5. All right, I hope I made that clear. Now, you know, I told you before that we have things called double sharp, sharp, neutral sign, flat, double flat. You've seen that in previous videos. If you're a beginner, most people call them accidentals. That's fine. I call them specifiers. Because when I'm done with this set of videos, my chord notation system set of videos, I'll explain all the different changes that I made to help you see things more clearly. But I call them specifiers. But in either case, it doesn't matter. The point is this. The point is, in my system, all right, specifiers or accidentals, if that's what you want to call them, all right, they're used only with tone or note names. Tone or note names are letters. They're letters. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Those are the letters that indicate tone names. Now, as an example, let's look at a chord. Let's say you wrote a chord using my system, and you said, oh, here we have an E flat major 7 bass chord, and instead of the E flat being the bass, we indicate here with a forward slash and a B flat that the bass note is a B flat. We'll get into that later. But the point is, you're only going to see specifiers, that is flats or sharps or whatever, with letter tone names. Down here's another one. You say, oh, we have an F sharp minor 7 bass chord, but we see that the F sharp is not the bass, so we have to tell the player, the musician, that the bass is C sharp, so we put that forward slash in, put the C sharp. But the point is, the specifiers or accidentals, whatever you want to call them, are used only with the tone names, the note names, and they're always going to be a letter. You're not going to see sharps and flat symbols and the other ones with anything but the lettered tone names in my system. you're not going to see, oh no, you're not going to see a flat 5. That's a horrible that's a horrible terminology. But you see it everywhere in contemporary music. See flat 5, we'll talk about that later, but you'll see a diminished 5, right? You're not going to see a sharp 5, but you might see an augmented 5, an augmented 5th. You're not going to see a flat 7, you're going to see a minor 7. I just wanted to point that out. So now you should have a better understanding of the System 2000 chord symbol, a little bit better. And in the next few videos I'll try to wrap it up and go a little bit deeper. But common sense will tell you at some point, you'll say, oh, I get it. I know how to write that out. I know how to indicate exactly what notes are in that chord by using this system, so that the person reading my symbol or reading the music will not get confused. Right? That's about it. Thank you for being patient, and I hope to see you soon.